Welcome back, coaches. This is the Football Coaching Podcast. I'm Daniel Chamberlain, co-host here with Joe Daniel as always.
Coach, I've made a commitment to posting on Instagram.
Okay.
Here's the thing. You're going to have to freelance for a minute because I left my phone in the other room and I got to get that post out. I could post it after the show, I guess.
No, go for it, man. I can freelance.
Well, I'll let you level up and then I'll just guess what it was.
Okay.
For sure. I've got it written. It's all in draft. I just got to grab my phone real quick. So you can go ahead and start your level up and we'll
awesome
roll from there.
So, what's funny is you say for me to go ahead and do my level up. My level up this week is kind of a reduction from what I've been doing. My level up this week is just giving some time back to the family. I've been really pushing this level up thing, and so I've been grabbing something every week to get started. But really, I've just been looking for income sources outside of teaching because you can hear my child's very upset. Because I don't have a job anymore in like 3 weeks outside of coaching. So, so I'll still be coaching ball, but I don't teach anymore. So
Yeah.
I tell you what, here's what's funny. Here's what I did for my level up this week is we're considering a food truck for because I can do it for breakfast and lunch and still get to football practice, right? Even in the fall. And I'm thinking about doing I think they call them Neapolitan style pizzas. So like traditional pizzas, margaritas and marinaras and all that craziness. And then of course
squares instead of shredded mozzarella all over them.
Yeah.
And
so I'm thinking of food truck. I've been spending some time with a friend of mine that does a food truck here in Oklahoma, and it's a military buddy of mine and his wife who was one of my best friends before they met. So it was really, really strange. I did not hook them up. Probably a story for another time. But anyway, so I've been helping her. He's been busy, so I've been helping her in the food truck, and I have absolutely fallen in love with it. It's so much fun just to cook, and you're in a little space, and it's like, I don't know. I don't think I ever knew I would have fun cooking, but it truly is you don't know what's coming. I've been a server before. It's how I put myself through college, waiting tables. So it's like the other side of that. I take the orders, but I don't have to refill their stinking drinks or actually make sure they're happy. I take their money, I give them their food, they go away. And so I'm thinking about doing pizza. So I've been doing a ton of research on pizza ovens and how to make my own dough from scratch and ingredients. And I don't know if you're listening and you've ever been to the UK, you know that food is just different over there. But I've been listening to a guy from the UK that runs a 1972 Chevrolet delivery van, like a P10. I think they call them a short nose. It's gorgeous. It looks like a hot rod. I live in Oklahoma. I could never do that because our potholes will swallow. I drive a little hybrid car right now for this long distance drive. I'm afraid I'm going to lose it in the highway sometimes. But so that's what I've been doing for Level Up is thinking of income outside of teaching. And it's thrown me into this crazy rabbit hole of I could actually cook food for people of the morning and then go to football practice.
Yeah, it's the first year for me was it was a different situation because I had no, I didn't have any, if I screwed up, it didn't affect anybody else. It was just me.
Right.
But, there was a year of figuring out what I was going to do. We do have a pizza truck that I really want to try, and I always see it parked, but I don't go to food trucks. I don't work somewhere where you do that, and I don't go to breweries. So I rarely ever go to a food truck, but we have one that I really want to try just because the truck looks so cool, and it's called 51 Pizza, and it's a 51 Chevy.
There you go.
And I'm like, that just pizza has to be good. It absolutely has to be good.
For sure.
If it's not, I will. First of all, it's pizza. It's good, but I will pretend that this is the best pizza I've ever had. So my level up, I've drawn a lot of playbooks, and I've used a lot of playbook software. I've been toying with the idea and wanting to do it, and I want to do some other stuff with it, but I went ahead and I haven't actually opened it. or started writing it, but I've watched the tutorial from CoachTube on a tutorial I picked up on CoachTube on drawing your playbook in Visio, in Microsoft Visio.
Yeah.
And so
You
I
mean
watched.
I get a Vizio account now? Is that what you're telling me?
Um, they're not as expensive as I think. Everybody's always been like, "Oh, but Visio is so expensive," and it's like, Microsoft's all subscription now, so it's like $10 a
Oh,
month. So it's not like the thing always was Vizio's expensive. The only thing is I have not been able to get this daggone thing to download. So it's 5 for the online version. I don't want the online version. I want it offline. I want to be able to work on this.
yeah.
I'm tomorrow I'm flying to Dallas. I want to be able to work on it in the airport with crappy Wi-Fi there. I want to be able to work on it on the plane. I'm flying Southwest. Some of their planes have Wi-Fi, some of them don't. Some of them do, but it doesn't work. Sometimes they say it works, but that's a lie.
You're
Uh,
lying, Southwest
yeah,
Airlines.
you Southwest, you bunch of liars. I forgot to check in, so now I'm like, from Richmond to Atlanta is fine, but I'm like B56 going from I'm so close to just paying for the upgrade to be in the A1 through 15 because this trip is already expensive and it's like whatever.
Free
Um,
drinks. At least you get free beer, right, on the way down.
no, not
Oh,
no. I think you might get it. Not this is just like a boarding, like a board earlier. But I don't have that much stuff. I don't even carry a full size. Like I'm gonna have like a little man bag. Like I'm not gonna have I don't even carry a full rolly suitcase. Chris Four one time posted Chris, you jerk. Chris posted a thing on Twitter. I'll never forget it. I think it was on Twitter or Instagram, and it was like a picture using the airport, and a picture of somebody with one of the pulling the suitcase with the rollers on it. And Chris posted something about what it was, pick up your suitcase. And I'm like,
come on now.
come on,
Technology's
man.
making life easier.
If I have enough stuff, if I have enough stuff, I'm using it. I don't not use it because of that, but I have a bag that holds everything and is very small, and I don't have to worry about like when you're flying out of Richmond, you get a lot of puddle jumper planes, and then we go to a big airport where they then transport us to a real airplane,
Right.
one without propellers on the front, and this is a small airport, so it will be. Oh, by the way, I had to pick up a rental. I always think Richmond's a small airport. I talked about my wife's car dying. We got
Mhm.
it back finally, but I had to drive the rental car back to the Shenandoah Valley Airport, which services only James Madison University and nothing else. So right now, like I'm sure it's bumping on like a Friday in the fall when James Madison has a home game. But right now, there's nothing there. There's
Right.
nothing there. There's a vending machine. There's like 2 rental car companies, and there's a vending machine. So I think Richmond's small, but there was not a single person in there. There was one other guy coming to pick up a rental car. That was it. That
That's
was
awesome.
nice to know. But yeah, I'm going to dive into that. I might dive into it tonight. I've also got I've got an assistant who we hired that he's doing a very good job in his role, which is primarily in the customer service, but I know that he is into the graphic design side of things. So I'm looking at maybe getting him, hey, this is graphic design. Kinda. Right.
Kinda.
We don't think of it that way, but kinda. You can make playbooks pretty.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can.
It's better than, answering customer service emails.
Yeah. You're onto something with the flight hacks. My wife and I have, we've traveled a little bit together. We never take anything bigger than a carry-on suitcase. You
Oh,
can
I
pack
never
like
check
5
anything.
days in there,
Yeah.
and even the small one, I carry just a backpack mainly because that way they never lose your luggage. You
Yep.
have everything all day, you never lose anything. It's wonderful. So
And I
you're
never go anywhere for long. This is 4 days. This is probably the longest trip that I've
yeah.
had.
The other thing is, I think in the loading order, it's truly Ricky Bobby. If you ain't first, go last. Because like being military, I'm usually like I get called up with A group, right? Because that's
Right.
a perk of the job, and that's fine because you get the maximum time to sit. But I've found that like if you're just gonna have to stand in line anyway, I just wait and go last. Like my wife, that's what
Mm.
she does now. She's like, nope, I'll just sit here until they're about to close the door, and then I'll get on the airplane. So
The only
before
thing
you upgrade,
the only concern that I have is that because of the overhead compartments will sometimes fill up if
yeah,
you're
your
one of the
bag ends up
last
in a weird
group
place.
going on.
That's true.
I don't think on a flight from Atlanta to Dallas that's going to be a problem. I imagine it's going to be a big plane.
Mm-hmm.
Might be a lot of people, but the planes, when I get on the planes that are going from Richmond to Detroit, it's like this might not. And a lot of lately, I've been flying Richmond to Chicago O'Hare a lot, and mostly United, and they don't put you on a big plane for that. There's just not that many people that go to Richmond, Virginia. There's just not. There
Absolutely.
aren't. If you can go to Dulles if you're anywhere close.
Yeah. Last thing I have to mention it because it just feel convicted. We had a huge tornado outburst. So I mean, the whole tornado alley did this past weekend. Lots of little towns were hit, but primarily Sulphur, Oklahoma, which is I grew up in Lone Grove, just right down the street from there. They were essentially leveled. From the information I got, they got hit by not one but two tornadoes.
Wow.
One hit, they sent out the recovery crew to help people get out of buildings, and they got hit again. Now that may come out to be a false story and has been drummed up, but regardless, the town is flat. So our condolences go out to all of you Bulldogs out in Sulphur Land. And kudos to Davis. They got rivals right down the road, and they were like sending them school buses to get kids to track competitions today and stuff like that. So it's great the football community or school communities have reached out. Hopefully it's already happened. We're trying to organize a fundraising clinic, and so I'm kind of trying to lead that up and get people on board. And so hopefully you've heard me talk, and I'm going to talk a little bit. Joe's going to come on and talk. We got some other guys that are that have vouched that they'll come on and do a clinic so that our listeners can come on and pay. So you've probably already seen that on Twitter. Hopefully it's not been delayed long enough for this episode to come out, but just this is the first chance I've had to be on the air and say something for the people of Sulphur. So definitely our hearts go out to you guys, and hopefully they gotten all the help they needed. That food truck company I was talking about, my friend military, they went down today and gave them free food. Like they just whoever's in the area you need to eat, come eat, because it's just crazy. So anyway, yeah, there you go. We'll pay the bills, Joe, and then we will get into our conversation for tonight.
So we're going to check out joedanielfootball.com/rules. You're going to get the 40 Coach Simple rules to winning football games, or for football coaches who want to win football games. It is 40 tips, tricks, tactics, strategies that you can use to win a football game. And we talk about, you go to a clinic or you listen to a podcast, if you can find one little thing that'll help you. I'm 99% sure. Maybe some of you are geniuses, and we just don't see. It just won't work out with us. But it's free to find out. For the rest of you, you'll find something, and one of those 40 things is going to help you win a football game. So download it for free at joedanielfootball.com/rules.
Awesome. Also, want to quickly mention Athletic Speed and Movement. I know you guys have heard the ads before. We've been pushing this for just over a year now. We had our first re-up customers the other day, which is great. But what we got over there is Del Basquet's 40 plus years of experience. He's put into one program to help you teach your kids how to run and then how to run faster, right? So really talk about that first 4 to 6 weeks, teaches your gangly, long limb, don't know where they're, no spatial awareness or body awareness, teaches those people how to tighten things up and actually run. As one of the big comments I got recently from a coach who finished the whole program was everyone looks the part now. And then you get to advance them into running faster. You get to get back into the football movement, football speed, cuts, pulls, kicks, routes, acceleration, deceleration, all the things that you need for your football players to be fast this year is over at athleticspeedmovement.com. So jump over there today, get signed up.
Yep. We just hit, by the way, week 6. We did day 1 of week 6, which is the first week where you start running full speed. And it is cool. It is when you finally hit the full speed running drills and you see the kids who have really committed to it go out there and run. And they look so good. It's awesome. And by the way, we still got 6.5 more weeks. So,
right. Awesome. Bills paid. We'll jump right in here. So tonight we're talking two tight formations and defending them. I know, I guess about 4 weeks ago, we covered how to defend tight end nub and condensed edges. And so, I thought it was only appropriate that we think about having two tight ends now. So Joe, our first question here tonight is just what are two tight formations?
Two tight formations, specifically when we're talking about two tight end formations. We're not talking about what they talk about on the NFL, a broadcast where they're like, this is 32 personnel because they've got three guys that are listed as tight ends. Like that doesn't matter to us, right? You can list them as whatever you want. The high school kids are, they either have a lineman number or they don't. Like that's
Right.
it. Unless he can throw, we're all it's just skill kid lineman. Um, so what we're talking about is formations where we have two tight ends on the line of scrimmage, two eligible receivers, hand in the dirt on the line of scrimmage that could be a receiver or could be are in position to be a receiver, but are also in position to block like an offensive lineman, that are in position to down block, to bait, to combo in an inside zone, to down block in a power, to climb to the linebacker, to pass pro, but also in a position to release and go out for a route. That's essentially, and they're on both sides. So we're not talking about, in the NFL, they'll be like, this is a too tight formation, that the announcers, because it's number 80 and number 88 standing next to each or number 88 and number 89. And they're like, well, those are tight ends, because this sheet says they're tight ends.
Right.
And it's like, this is, that's, and it'll be like, it'll always be like, just, it'll be like a real tight end, like a blocking. So Georgia, two tight end formation. They would call it two tight end formation when it was Washington and Bowers, right? Washington's 300 pounds. He's on the ball. Bowers is a slot receiver. He's off the ball, right? That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about two guys on the line of scrimmage. And in high school, we know that they may not be 300 pounds, they may not be 200 pounds, but they're in position to do the things we said. So your typical one tight end to each side formation. I think that's specific enough.
Yeah.
So not over formations, not a tight end wing. Two tight ends with their hands in the dirt, standing next to tackles. That's
Perfect. Yeah. I think anything, when I think too tight, I kind of compartmentalize it as like, how many gaps did they just add?
Right.
So I might even worry about tight end wing, but of course we can discuss that at another time. But we're just going to talk what I call ace. I don't know what everyone else calls it. I think you call it pro in your offense, right? Or is that a
I mean,
tight
is it?
end?
Well, no, it would be. So we would have to create. We don't have a formation called. So for us, it would be. So Pro 2 would be. So just an example. Pro 2 would be the tight end to the right. Pro sends the tight end. It actually sends the Z receiver and tells the tight end to go with him. Our formations actually dictate where the Z receiver is,
Gotcha.
and then they tell who goes with the Z receiver. So Pro tells the Z receiver to go to the right, tells the tight end to go with him to the right. The tight end is on the ball to the right. And then we would use a 2 alignment for the H-back. So we align the H-back left to right, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 is split out to the left. 2 is in the tackle area, and he has to align based on the call, know where he needs to go. Or H has to be a smart player. 3 is that wing, area to the right, maybe inside, maybe outside. He may be in a sniffer position. He may be in a wing position. It depends on what we need him to do. If he's got to kick out, he's going to be in a sniffer position. If he's got to come back across and kick out the opposite side or wrap to the opposite side, he's going to be in a sniffer position. If he's going to run a route, he's going to be in the wing position. If we're going to run outside zone, he's going to be in the wing position. So there's different things that we can do with him. And then 4 is split out to the right. So we would go Pro 2. Pro would tell the tight end to go to the right, or Y would go to the right. And then 2 would tell him to line to the H-back to align in that wing area to the left. And then we would tag it with on. And that would tell the H to be on and the X to be off. And so Pro 2 on would be what, but yes, that's how we create the formation. But yes, we, in just general terminology, I've always heard it called ace.
Yep. Too tight, too wide.
Yep.
Very balanced formation, especially in the age of the pistol. And, I guess gun can throw it off. But anyway, so that's kind of how I think of it. We have extra gaps everywhere. Which
and then if you have 2 backs, usually I formation, so we call it a dot I. So dot I is double tight I. The dot formation would be a 2 back, so we would call it dot I or dot split. Depending on what the backfield is, but usually it's dot I.
Was doing, yeah. So all that kind of takes us into our second question here, and it's, now that we know what they are, why do I need to have a plan for them on defense?
exactly what you said. They create an extra gap, and more so than that, they create, as I said, an extra down blocker. So it's not even the gap is one thing. You can break some bad defensive structures by going in double tight. They don't have a good answer for it. If you look at um, 4-3 defenses who do not two gap, right? So you try to not two gap your 4-3 defense. Miami 4-3, the Mike backer is two gapped. The Will backer is essentially a uh, alley defender on a weak side run. If you go um, double tight and you run, let's say, an inside zone or something like that, the Mike fits the front side A gap, the nose is in the backside A gap, weak side A gap. The Will is supposed to be the B gap player, and the N is in C gap. Well, now you've got an issue because you have no alley defender if you do it that way. And that's the key there is now let's say that you're running a quarters and the safety comes down to force. And you can't run cover three out of it. You're completely broken if you run cover three. But
Right.
if the safety comes down to force, if he gets kicked, it's off to the races. The only thing you have is the backside safety coming over to try to be an alley defender. And if you've displaced him at all, then you have a problem. So you can look for ways to break a defense using an extra gap. And if your defense breaks against two tights, and a lot of people don't realize that, like you just having a guy out there isn't enough, because if the guy gets kicked out somehow, and with quarterbacks being so heavily involved in the run game now, and that's easy. Take the ace formation, take the double tight, with two split receiver with two receiver 2x2. That's easy now because you just let the quarterback. You go in a gun formation, you let that kick out, and the quarterback follow him,
Yeah.
and you spill. Yeah, the linebacker should theoretically scrape, but we're hats on hats, and you add that extra hat. And the big thing with it, the big scary thing for defenses too, is we have our heavy check in our odd fronts or in our even fronts. Odd fronts are a little bit different. Odd fronts can be some people get scared and they want to again bring somebody down over top of the tight end. The scariest thing for odd fronts is you have to be aware that you have to slam that tight end if he tries to come down on you, because you have that extra gap. So if you're blitzing that extra gap, or if you're slanting that way if you're into the C gap, you have to be wider than normal. So you got to slam for that guy to if he comes down on you, because what happens is, and in our even fronts where we have a weak side 5 tech, and it's funny because kids are kids. If you don't talk about this, you will get in an even front, a 4-3 or a 4-2. One of the best things to do against a 4-3 or a 4-2, especially that's not really well coached, is to get in double tight, because there's a good chance that the first time you do it, if they're not ready, you will get a 1 and a 9 tech, because the weak end is so used to just always putting his hand down outside of the end guy. And so
Yes.
you'll get a 1 tech and a 9 tech. You'll have an A gap defender and a outside. So you'll have a B and a C gap open. And the biggest criminal mistake that you can make on defense is having two adjacent open gaps.
I suffered that this year, so it happens to us
It,
all.
absolutely. And it happens, and you want to test for it. And especially, good Lord, if you're coaching freshman, JV, middle
Yeah.
school, do it. And just plan on running at that weak side surface as soon as you can, where you're going to have the 1 and the 9. So you want to check for that. But the bigger thing is we have our heavy check. So our will linebacker in the 4-2, just as an example, and it's the same in the 4-3. Our will linebacker has one thing to look for. is now he's the guy who calls out down and distance. Mike linebacker's calling the strength. I want the will linebacker looking at the sticks, and I want him calling out down and distance. And I want everybody to be aware of tendencies, usually general tendencies, not like special things. But hey, it's um, second and short's a shot play. Second and long is a screen play. Third and short, we know they're probably going to run it. Third and long is pass down. Those kinds of things.
Yeah.
But the will backer is looking for one thing and one thing only. If he sees a tight end on his side, that's all he's got to do. He's got to check every snap. Is there a tight end on my side? And if he sees one, then he needs to make a heavy check. The Mike linebacker has to check to see if there's 3 dudes with eligible numbers or with ineligible numbers on his side because it's unbalanced, and he needs to make an unbalanced check. But so he's got to be, the will backer's got to be looking for that and make the heavy check. And what the heavy check does, if your weak side end gets a tight end outside of him, and again, just lines up in the 5 on the tackle the way he has always done, he's in a 5 tech outside shade of the tackle, it is very easy to down block him with the tight end and collapse the edge and then run an outside zone or something over there or anything over there, because you're able to down the defensive end. You don't have to kick him. So now you think, okay, normally we would run power and we would be kicking out who? We would be kicking out that defensive end, right? Well, we don't have to kick him out, right? If he's in a 6, I got to kick him out. I got to rip inside of him. I'll just down the whole thing. We'll go kick out the safety.
Right.
Now you're screwed because now there's nothing. At least if you spill it, because even if the safety, like what happens if the safety spills it? He spills it to nobody because he's the force. So what we have to do is make the heavy check. We slide that tells the weak side end when he has a tight end. The will backer says heavy, heavy, heavy. That tells the weak side to slide out to inside shades. So it's an adjuster rule. So he slides out to a 7 or a 6i, whatever you want to call it. And just, we don't teach a lot of technique on that. If we played a team that played a ton of double tight, we might, but just bust that tight end in the mouth so they can't come down on you, so they can't block you down, because he's not a strong end. Sometimes I've played teams that run a ton of double tight and I have a backup strong end, or my will is a legitimate, like he can do both, and he can work strong end, but our strong end works different technique, not so much in the 4-3, but in the, in the 4-3, he doesn't ever work inside shade. So it's a completely new technique. In the 4-2, if he works as the backup strong end, or if I have a quality backup strong end, I will play with 2 guys in 6 or 6 eyes. And I'll play 2 eyes and 6 eyes, or 2 eyes and 6s, which is inside shade of the guards and head up or inside shade. We play a heavy 6-eye with our guys that are good. And what that means is we're not head up, but we pretty much are. We're aligned on the inside corner of the inside number. So we are aligned about an inch inside of his belly button, right? That's, but it's more to give it's head up, but making sure that the end understands you are an inside gap player. Don't get outside and leave C gap undefended. So, but normally we make that heavy check and he slides out to an inside shade. And then also the tackle slides out to an inside shade of the guard, so that we don't have a one technique shaded on the center and, again, creating too much space between those guys. So we get a 2-eye and a 7 or 6-eye, again, whatever you want to call it, inside shade of the tight end. Make sure that we control that edge. We don't want that edge to get collapsed. So that's a big tight end, double tight issue.
So you kind of jumped into the third question already.
Planned on it, yeah.
No, it's good. We're in a little bit of fast forward mode tonight. Y'all don't know that on your side, but we have a time limit tonight, so we're trying to hit it. I think you need to have a plan, because depending on, Joe, you mentioned it, cover 3 is gone, right? If you're going to truly roll down your backers trying to get to cover 3, you're going to be very broken.
Well, it depends. 4-3 it is, but not necessarily. If you're in a 4-2.
Well, you just have to make sure that you can handle. You've got to be force right now before you worry. But also, you have less to worry about in the flat, right? Because there's just one dude out there.
Right.
And so you
Well,
start looking.
with the four with the three with a 30 front, there's a little bit of a concern because they're going to get free releases, but less of a concern as far as like four verts because we don't have somebody over top of them. But if we're in a 40, especially the 4-2, I'm not too concerned because they're not going to get free releases where they can get we get two verticals because we've got the 7 and the 6.
Yeah,
But yeah, if in the 4-3 we cannot run cover 3. And in the odd fronts, there's a little bit of a concern because of the free releases. We got to have somebody, and nobody's really in a position like we are with normal 2x2 to hammer the release.
right.
So the 3-3 is probably the one where it's like double tight is a little bit, you need to have some sort of a plan of how are we going to get in their face.
Well, and I think that that's one of the reasons you need to think this through is because they're going to dictate where your outside backers are. They're going to tell you where you have to put them, which means they've probably game planned that. You know what I mean? When they roll their outside backers down to be outside of our tight ends, now they're there. You talked about running outside zone to that side. I can reach you because you rolled way down. But as soon as you don't,
Mm-hmm.
now I'm down blocking, running counter, and I'm coming to kick you or power or whatever, right? So, um, yeah, I mean, you have to have an idea. There's something in my face, a bug. You have to have a plan for what are your coverage adjustments going to be? What are your alignment adjustments going to be? And you already talked about like you've made someone choose who their force and alley players are as well. When you mess with that alignment with those outside backers, maybe your base defense, your outside backers are your force, and now, like you said, what do you do when you get a down block? Well, you've got to go run the just like the D line always has to, right? You got to run hill line, try to blow something up. So now that safety has to come down, be forced, and you're just out. You run out of players real fast if you don't have a plan for it. So I think that's why you need to have a plan. We kind of get into what are your main focuses this last part, and you covered a lot of the main focuses is those alignments. What are you doing with your defensive end? Making sure you have those checks.
Yeah, I
Um,
think you've got to have those checks. Like that's number one is if they come out in too tight and unless you just have a system where, and again, if the 3-3, the 3-3 is an example where um you don't necessarily have to have a check. You just have to be alert, that we can't get down blocked here. We can't get crushed down. Um but so like just as an example, normally we would slant, let's say we slanted slanted to the primary tight end, the strong side tight end, and blitz the weak side stack backer. Well, normally we would be blitzing him off of the hip of the tackle, right? And if the tackle goes down, he's going to bend that line of scrimmage. Well, he can't, he's got to play that 6-eye blitz now where he's attacking. So I don't have to check it, but he's got to know. This is one of the things about 3-3. And I didn't used to talk about this. I didn't used to understand it, but when you play the 3-3, and again, it goes back to why the 4-2 is so simple and everything else just gets more complicated and more complicated. Not bad, but you've got to be aware of it. In the 3-3, you have to train your linebackers to be defensive linemen when they blitz. To an extent in the 3-4, but most of the time that's your Sam, sometimes your Will. It's not like you have to train everybody. And our Sam is basically cross-trained as a defensive end. In the 3-3, we're creating fronts with those guys, and they may be tackles. When they blitz, if he blitzes an A gap, he's a D tackle now, right? He's got to squeeze down block. Well, when in that situation, in that scenario with two backs, my will backer, my stack backer, on the weak side has to understand that when he blitzes, he cannot squeeze the hip of the tackle, because if he does and the tight end comes down, they collapse the edge and they take all that slant momentum down. Whereas normally if they did that, we're squeezing with it and we're spilling and we have everything taken care of because we have a force and an alley out there.
right.
And maybe even other backers scraping. And there's always the potential for other backers scraping. So it's not like if these things, and I talked about some of these things, and some of you guys may be like, you've got a good talented team and you're like, no, that never happens to us. It's like, well, if eventually somebody will make it, but if you have guys, scraping linebackers and stuff, I understand all that, but there's ways to break that. They're not numbers wise, you're not in a good scenario. For example, a one gap 4-3 defense. I don't think a one gap 4-3 defense is a good scenario. Period.
Right.
Just, just not. It's not. Because again, if you want to be a one gap 4-3, be a 4-2. It's not that hard. And the only difference is you move the defensive end inside or head up. It's not, you move them from a 9 to a 6I or a 6. It's not a big. Guys are like, no, we're a 4-3 because we have lots of linebackers. No, it's not. That's not what we're talking about. Passing wise, I don't think it bothers us, does it? I mean, it's.
My only concern is that anytime you take a guy that's out in the open and easy for lots of people to have eyes on, and now you're able to hide him down there with a defensive end, down there with a linebacker that's looking over him, you've got that, down block and a pop pass. Or so I think that if you're a smoke and mirrors offense, it helps you. Of course, it alleviates some things too. You don't have to worry about a bubble. Now screens are absolutely ludicrous at this point, so you take away a lot of that quick screen game. But you add that internal ability to, like, I'm going to make your linebackers wrong. I can still read and throw RPOs while you're worried about this heavy set run game, right? If we do get if we can shift, a tackle over, we keep our ace look too tight, but now we have you outnumbered 4-2 or 4-3 on the one side of the center. So, you can start messing with some things to see if a defense is paying attention. You can start slowing down defensive players just by making them read so many things. It's one thing about a tackle. He's going to down block, reach you, or go for a backer, but he ain't going on a pass route.
He's not releasing. Yeah,
that's right.
That's one of the hardest things. That's why I took the end man on the line of scrimmage read out, was because the tight end, it's just, is he down blocking, or is one of the hardest things? So this is something to consider when you play tight ends in general, is the ability to run what we call a slam shoot route, where we down block and then release, right? And then release to the flat. Like, that's a hard read for us.
Right.
So those are the kinds of things that you can do with the tight end. It's not unique to two tight ends. But you can't do that with a Z. He can crack corner, but he can't actually engage and release the way that a slot receiver, the way a tight end can, a slot receiver cannot do that.
Right. And then it's just personnel. It's just how are you going to match up to it? If you've got your nickel or dime package in, or maybe you're a 3-4 because I've got all these linebackers, which I still think is
in the
opposite way of how to think about that.
But the first thing we need to identify is which one's the strength, right? So again, one of them's 270, one of them's 190. Probably, not always. Probably, big boy is the strength. Which one's the blocker, and which one's the receiver.
For sure.
If you can identify that, or which one's the Y and which one's the H. That, I think, is one of the first things you want to identify, because we don't want to be out there. The rule, the general rule, just real quick, the general rule is strength rule for us is tight end, most receivers. If it's balanced, which the ace formation would be balanced, we would go to the wide side.
Yes.
But we would, in a game where we know we're going to see two tight ends, we're going to identify that's a real tight end. Call the strength to him.
Yeah. Who's the sixth lineman and who's the athlete, right? Because
exactly.
Hey, I don't care if I put him in the boundary. I can still run counter to the boundary and make
boundary
money all night long.
Boundary is perfectly fine for off tackle. I might not want to run toss into it, but I can run power counter into it.
Absolutely. All right, man. I know it's kind of an abbreviated episode, you guys, and I'm sure some of you are going to be applauding, like, "Hey, they finally kept one under a true hour." Well, yeah. Well, there you go, getting your money's worth for this one. But we did check all the boxes tonight. We talked about all the things too tight.
We get a lot more people who want them to be longer, by the way.
I'm sure. Long format conversations are making a comeback. I do think
our fans have an attention span.
Right. There we go. Well, that's good, because we're fairly long format around here. Guys, I'm sure you're going to have more questions. If you do, you can feel free to reach out, especially if you're a Joe Daniel premium member, then, you jump onto the Chalkboard forums and ask your questions. And then, of course, on Mondays, when we get back to the Chalkboard what do you
Talk
call
talk.
those? Chalk talks. Man, sorry, drew a blank there.
We'll
Get
have
back to
one.
chalk talk. We can
We'll
jump
have
on
one
here.
coming up here for JDFB clients. We'll have one coming up here May 27th, I believe.
There
Last
you go.
Monday, the last
There you
Monday of the month, and then last Monday of May, last Monday of June, last Monday of July, and then we roll right into August. And
Hey, baby, weekly.
we're weekly.
Awesome. Pay the bills one more time on our way out here. So go over to joedanielfootball.com/rules. Get those 40 rules that Joe talked about. Look, it's just 40 gold nuggets, right? You want to look for the nugget in your clinic season. Clinic season's over for just about everyone now. So your notebook should be full, but let's be honest, you guys don't go and fill up a notebook. So you just listen for the one key thing. That's great. We just took 40 key things and put them on a sheet of paper, right? So download that PDF, cost you your email address. That's over at joedanielfootball.com/rules. Once again, I'll talk, let you know that I am trying to get my foot in the door in graphic design. So if your team is in need of graphics of any kind, schedules, player of the week, game day posters, I'm kind of doing it all right now. So I have a solo coach package, I have team packages, and then if your entire athletic department needs help, I've got you too. And some of you need help, guys. I'm not gonna lie. I see some colleges that put out some hot garbage for graphics, and I almost want to just make them a free one and send it to them and be like, hire me, because Lord have mercy. But I think
We've got a 22-year-old coach, so we're good.
There you go. Right,
Yeah,
you got to get a certain age.
That's what you need.
There you go. Yeah. They can use Google and.
But if you don't have that, Daniel,
there we go. Yeah, bills paid. What sales are opening and closing?
Man, we're going to be, this will be what?
Mid-May.
Mid-May. So we may be, as the day, no pun intended, we may be, as the day that this comes out, still open enrollment on JDFB Weight Room, as we are about 12 weeks out from the start of the season. So the natural jumping on point, and then you can roll right into the in-season program, all included, with the JDFB Weight Room Complete program. And then here at the end of the month, we'll be opening up the defensive play caller system coming out, opening up on the 27th, closing on the 31st of May. Defensive play caller system has been awesome. And it's just a deep dive into how to use your call sheet, how to design your call sheet. A lot of the things that we talked about, the checks you need to have. There's some stuff in there that I just think is awesome. There's cheat sheets that I think are awesome that are just worth the price of admission. So be on the lookout for defensive play caller system here at the end of the month.
Awesome. Social media, I'm at Coach Chambo OK on Twitter/X. You can also find me at chamberlainfootballconsulting@gmail.com if you have a conversation. If you have a too tight question, if you want to come on the podcast, reach out, especially you JDFB members that are listening to this. We're really going to start prioritizing y'all. So you want to come on and talk a little bit of ball, we would love to have you. Just only rule is you got to bring something to the table and be able to speak English like coherently. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Look, I've had some conversations with some coaches, and I'm like, I don't know what you said. I'm hard of hearing as it is. Joe, where can we find you on social media?
You can find me on Instagram at Joe Daniel Football, on Twitter at Football Info. Email Joe at joedanielfootball.com for information about the site, and obviously joedanielfootball.com.
Perfect. The podcast is at the FBCP on Twitter/X. If it's your first time listening to the Football Coaching Podcast, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. You can find us on your favorite podcatcher, especially Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You've been listening for a while. If you don't mind, leave us a review. We're always looking to get better, as coaches are, lifelong learners. So we want to know, like Joe said, if it's not long enough, let us know. We can talk. There's going to be some short episodes every once in a while because life happens and Tuesday nights are valuable. So,
but we stay on schedule.
There you go. Especially on Apple and Spotify, leave us reviews so other coaches can find us and get the same help that you're getting. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Football Coaching Podcast. Remember, coach simple, play fast, win.